the Gentlementor.
All right, Mozo has entered the room. Are you ready for me to admit him?
Bring him in. Admit
right.
him. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Welcome, Mozo.
Hey, Mozo.
How y'all feeling? How you doing, Doug? How you doing, Mark? How y'all doing?
Good, man. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. It's good to have you.
Sorry about the shifting time.
To be honest with y'all, this works even better for me because the kids are sleeping.
Oh, great. Great.
And I'm able to do my thing without having to worry about my little one running around and wanting to be on the camera and all that stuff, you know?
Right.
How many
kids?
Man?
Yeah, how many kids you got? That's right.
I have two kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Nice.
And how long will it be before the 10-year-old takes over all of your internet presence, do you think?
He's already doing that. I feel like, he's big on he's my biggest supporter, so he's really like he listens to everything that I do and watches everything that I do and stuff. So
it shows, man. I just had Mark watch the little clip that's on your YouTube. Of him sharing about COVID and stuff, man. That tore me up. That tore me up.
Oh man, I was
that was a great conversation with him. I loved it.
He seems every time I see you guys interact in your video clips and stuff, I'm like, man, that guy's got a lot of love pouring into him, man. It's just it beams out of him, and it speaks volumes about the kind of parenting he's got, and it's a compliment to you. So
for sure, is he doing his own stuff? Is he doing his own stuff or?
He was actually after I did that interview. There was a organization that saw that they were doing something called COVID Chronicles for students.
Yeah. And
they saw the video, so they interviewed him for that. It hasn't been released yet, but he was interviewed like in his schoolyard. They asked him questions. So, he's excited for that too. They gave him like a little Amazon gift card for doing it, so
he's on his way to internet fame.
Yeah, man.
Every kid's dream nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays. What do you want to be when you grow up? YouTuber?
Right. Yeah.
What's that? Oh, that's great.
Well, here we are doing what we do, man. We've been friends for ages. We met in ministry years ago and really, I guess, started mentoring, doing that, and didn't even realize that's what we're doing. And we've both been through all kinds of jobs and stuff since, and we started doing this kind of as a way to start mentoring again, because we saw felt there was a big lack of that, and really hated that, there's a lot of the toxic masculinity talk going around, and wanted to do what we could do to be a positive influence to counter that and try to show masculinity in a positive light and masculinity that isn't toxic. And so the first probably 6 or 8 months, we just talked about our own experiences. And now we've been just kind of going around trying to meet people, introduce ourselves, and start relationships. So that's why I saw you a few weeks ago on the, I can't remember what group it was. Since we started doing this, I've gotten interconnected with a lot of groups. I could look them up here. This will sound terrible if I don't mention them now after I said that. All Men Cry. All Men Cry. It was they did open mic night on Instagram, and you came on and you did a verse, and some of the guys did some things. But I heard some things in your social media since then. Heard some things that you said that really resonate with things that I think we try to talk about, like personal responsibility and accountability. We don't go into judgment and stuff, but we deal with problems directly. When we see problems and issues, we try to deal with them directly and come up with positive solutions. So we kind of heard you as a kindred voice in that. Just wanted to bring you on tonight and sit down and have a conversation, learn about you, man, because we're old boring dudes. And so
listen, I appreciate that first and foremost. And I think that that's big that y'all are doing this, because us as men have to be able to hold these kind of spaces, right, and have these conversations with each other, because it doesn't happen often,
right.
Or it doesn't happen in a platform or in a space where everyone can see. A lot of just kept between us, which is okay, but we also have to get to a point where we also try to have that conversation with other people as well, because you learn from other people, you grow from other people, and you get inspired by other people.
Yeah.
So I think that it's super cool that you guys have this platform, and you guys are willing to have conversations with other men as well and other people, because, like I said, it's one thing to I have my boys come over all the time and we talk in the living room and stuff, but I'm like, all right, you know, those are my boys, those are my closest friends, right? But you know, maybe somebody else needs to hear it, you know, maybe someone else needs to hear this conversation, right? Maybe that may spark them having that conversation with their boys in their living room, and next thing you know, you know, like, it's just, it may start a cycle of change. And that's really what I want to see is types, you know, not change is going to happen right now, because the work that we're doing is not work that's going to make change for tomorrow, right? It's for generations to come, for the future to come, because we're not going to see change right away, the next day or next week or next month or next year. But like I said, that's why I am the way I am with my son. So when my son is raising his son, you know, it could just continue, you know, whatever the case may be, whatever he decides to do with his life, he's able to project that same love and care to other men and women, whoever else in this universe, so that the world is full of love, man. You know?
Yeah, it's a long-term investment, man. Long-term investment.
Well, and I think personally, and I know there's a lot of study too to show that, but I think the breakdown in our society, we're going to get flack for this, but breakdown in our society, it's because of men, because of fatherhood. It's because a lot of us just aren't stepping up, and we're not having those conversations with our sons. We're not having those conversations with other men like we do. And maybe we have those conversations, but then they're just not deep enough. They're so superficial, you know. We're like, hey, did you watch the game? Yeah. And that's all fine. But we don't get down to that, you know, the nitty gritty stuff of, you know, what's happening in your heart, what's happening in your mind, what's happening in the theater of your mind, what's going on. And so I think that's what's important as well.
Definitely. And we're capable of having those conversations. Like, we're capable of having them, you know, for a long time. People, right. For a lot of time, you know, society and cultures or whatever, they make it sound like we're not capable of having those conversations because we're supposed to be a certain way. Yeah. But we're more than capable of having those conversations. We can open up. We can share our emotions, say how we feel, without having to slam something down and be angry about it, you know?
Right.
And but like you said, it starts with us having the conversation. That's the beginning.
Well, and that too, and back to what you were saying about, you know, being mad and slamming something down, but we also don't have to be the Ted Bundys. We don't have to be the butt of every family situation that happens. That's what's aggravating too. Is that's what society and media has done to men as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Ted Bundy, Al Bundy.
Did I say Ted Bundy?
Yeah. We don't have to.
I'm sorry.
We don't want to be either.
This completely went off in a different direction. I'm so sorry. I'm an Al Bundy.
Try to avoid both of those. Try to avoid both of those. So Mozo, man, educate us about yourself. That's what we want to learn about you. Tell me, where'd you grow up, man? What was growing up like for you? Where'd you grow up? Tell us all about it.
I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I was born and raised. That's where I lived my whole entire life, in this city. And my parents came here at a young age from the Dominican Republic. You know, they worked hard. My mom, she's a medical assistant. My dad did, like, you know, he was like a handyman, different kind of job. So that was the way I was raised, you know. Now when it came to being raised, as far as like my parents wise, I feel like my parents loved me the best way they knew how to love me, you know. And I feel like for a lot of years I held a lot of resentment. You know, something that I talked about on my podcast about, you know, I held a lot of resentment towards my parents because of that, because I just felt like maybe you feel like you weren't, like, I look at the way I love my children, right? And I think to myself, damn, how come I couldn't get that love, right? Why wasn't I loved like that? You know, but then you have to think back and think, how were they loved when they were kids? You know, and that's what shows you how to love, right? Like, because unless you do some deep work on yourself, you're just going on by what you saw and what you learned by somebody else. And when you know, and that kind of stuff, you can't, you know. So for a long time I did that. And it wasn't until recent where I really took the time to have a conversation with my parents and really get to know them, really get to know, you know, my grandparents, as far as, you know, how they were raised and things like that. And it really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. But other than that, you know, I really, I'm still being raised, but not still being raised, but I'm still a son, right?
Right,
but,
right.
To get into some, you know, other things in my life. I work with youth my whole entire life. I've worked as a teacher's assistant. I've worked in juvenile detention as a program counselor, helping youth, trying to make sure they stay out of the juvenile detention and make sure they don't come back, and, you know, that kind of stuff. so a lot of my life and work has been involved in just really doing what I'm doing now. I'm just doing it now. I'm trying to do it in a larger scale and trying to reach more people, because I feel like, again, our voice is really our biggest weapon, and it's really something that we have to use and be able to use in a positive way. And I feel like a lot of negativity sometimes gets the light and not so much of the positive.
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
sells. It sells. Fear
Right.
sells,
Yeah.
hate sells, division sells, anger
Drama.
sells. That's why social media has the power that it does. Yeah,
Right.
man.
So what I'm trying to do, and sorry, before I get into everything else, I'm married for 10 years to my beautiful wife, who I
You
love
better
and
say it.
cherish.
Nice.
And out of that, 2 children, like I said, my 10-year-old son and my 3-year-old daughter. And I have a puppy as well, which I did not want, but my family wanted. So I said yes. I'm severely allergic to dogs. Like
Take one for the team,
like,
man.
yeah, I have like terrible asthma. So, but
Oh,
we've
man.
been able to work it out. So that works out. And yeah, that's pretty much what my life has been like.
And
and
you're
I'm
living,
just
I don't think you
trying.
said, where are you living now? Because you said you were
Yes,
in.
I still live in Brooklyn, New
You
York.
still
Yeah,
live
I
in
still
Brooklyn.
live in
Okay. All right. All right.
yeah, I still live in New York City. Yeah, I still live
Okay.
here. And what I feel like is the greatest city in the world. That's just my opinion. But
I
this is
like
where I
it.
stay at.
Was there once. Absolutely loved it. It was great.
Yeah. And that's pretty much me, man. That's pretty much Mozo, man. I like I said before, I'm just really trying to make a difference and make a change, and in the process of that, on that same way, I'm in my own journey. Like I've been on my own healing journey while I've been doing this, and I've had the support of my wife, my children, my boys, and most importantly, the support of myself. Like my support circle starts with me, and that's what's been happening.
Nice. Are you healing from the loss of Tom Brady? I saw that's Patriots right there on your necklace, right?
No,
Is
no,
that
no,
what it
no,
is?
no. No,
Is
no.
it?
That's the Dominican Republic. That's the Dominican
Oh,
Republic.
okay. Okay. Sorry. I was
It's
looking
all
at it. I've
right.
been looking at it for the longest time, and I was like, man, is
Yeah,
that a Patriot symbol? I really couldn't tell.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's Dominican
My bad.
Republic.
My
Yeah,
bad. I'm trying to read the room, so I should probably
it's
just
all
back off.
good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So I wanted to go back and kind of touch up on this if we can, if you're willing. Anything you don't want to
Of
talk
course.
about, say you don't want to talk about, but this resentment with your parents thing, I wanted to go back and can you kind of open up about that? Some kind of talk about what that was like and what that stemmed from. Was it just that you didn't mention? Do you have like brothers and sisters? So I assume you have some
Yeah.
siblings, and
So
you
yeah,
folks just hustling and busy, and you didn't.
no, I'll unpack that. So I just feel like we all go through different stages when it comes to being like sons and daughters, right? So when we're young, we feel like our parents love us, right? And they're always there for us. Like you fall down, they pick you right up, they get you up and all that stuff, right? But then as you start getting older in life, right, and you start becoming, what people call like you become a teenager, right? And you become rebellious, right? But that's because not that your parents' love for you changes, but you're getting older now. So you're still expecting the same kind of love, right? But at the same time, how can they can't love you the same way they love you when you were 3 years old or 2 years old or 4 years old, right? So then you feel like you're being less loved, or you feel like you're not getting the love that you're supposed to be getting. But it, and then you hold on to that as you grow up, as you get older, you hold on to that. So I think that's what I think happened to me. I think that as I got older, I felt like, and I was the oldest. I had a younger sister, so I felt like I had a lot of responsibility as well. There were days when I had to pick her up from school. I had to do this. I had to do that. I feel like I sacrificed a lot of my growing up sometimes for the well-being of my younger sister, because my parents are working,
Yeah.
or because my dad had to work, my mom had to work. So I felt like, like, damn, I want to go outside and go play, play this and do that, but I couldn't because I had to stay home with my sister, So I think that I just held on to that, and that's not healthy to do, because you hold on to it, then you become an adult, you move out and you just feel like, yes, I moved out, I don't have to deal with them anymore. Now I'm on my own. But at the end of the day, like, you want to love your parents, you want them to love you back, right? Like, that's ultimately what you want. And anybody who says that, unless it's something different, like, like something serious that was done to you, harm or something like that, you want your parents to love you. You want to love your parents. You want to have a healthy relationship with them. You want to be able to call them and say, hey, mom, how you doing? I love you, and all this good stuff, right? You don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to go days without speaking to my mother, or days without speaking to my dad because I don't need them, because I don't need to talk to them. I'm a man now. And that's how I thought for a long time. You know, like I was like, I'm my
Right.
own man now. I don't need to speak to my dad for what?
Yeah.
You know, but one of the most beautiful things has been, you know, hearing my dad open up now as he's gotten older as well. You know, and I think that maybe him seeing my relationship with my son has opened up his eyes to maybe what he could have done,
Yeah.
but maybe now he's realizing that it's not too late for him to do that. You know, and I still get in a little like shocked when I hear my dad tell me that he loves me, because I didn't hear it often growing up. You know, so when I hear my dad say, you know, I love you, or, you know, I love you a lot, or keep doing, you know, it's just positive things, it always catches me off guard. Like I always do like a double take, like, did I just hear that? You know, because it's not something I was used to hearing growing up. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I first of all, thanks for being transparent and sharing all that. I asked for two reasons. First of all, because I think, man, we've unpacked a lot of dad related issues, like being a son and growing up and the expectations of your dad and trying to fit into that thing. And there's so much universal experience. Like you and I could not be more different people, but the story you just shared and having that thing with your dad. My dad grew up, you know, with, like you had mentioned earlier, you don't know what he went through. And for years, I just resented my dad and thought he was an old, hard dude. And then I found out how he grew up and that his family like openly resented him when he was a child and refused to get him medical care when he needed it because they just considered him like a substandard human being in his own family. And I didn't understand that. Got older and saw that. It was like, oh. But we go through this thing, especially after we have kids of our own and we start understanding those dad situations on a whole nother level. And it like opens up and you have those, and I hope that if people hear this, or as people hear this, that those universal truths ring out and everybody sees we all have these kind of issues. You know, you may not have this specific one, but we all deal with dad issues. It's your first, you know, the first role model. So there's always some kind of wrestling to be done, you know, and it's great to make that journey. And the point you make about forgiveness, being able to forgive that, and for your dad especially, but for anybody, man, for people to learn to forgive and let go of stuff. Much smarter person than I said, you know, it's taking poison and expecting the other person to die. You know, we're taking our own poison. The other person has no idea. But thank you for sharing that. That was great stuff.
Of course. And like I said, that's why it's important that we share. Like if you feel comfortable enough, that's why I'm always urging people to share your story. You never know who can relate, or, you know, something that might, like I said, might spark them to just have a conversation with their mom or their dad about something. You know, like I know a lot of people have unhealthy relations with their moms and their dads. A lot of people, you know, and a lot of times it's something that can be resolved, you know, through a conversation, through just, you know, being open. But you can't just say, oh, my mom and my dad, the way they are. What are you doing though? You know what I'm saying? Have you taken the time to put in the work? Have you taken the time to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, have I tried? You know what I'm saying? Because trying isn't just saying when you're upset about something. That's not what trying is. Trying is really having to sit down with yourself first, and then having that conversation with your mom or your dad about what it is, how you feel. Tell them how you really feel. You know what I'm saying? Like how you really feel. And that's what worked for me. I told them how I felt. You know what I'm saying? And they were so hurt by it. You know, of course they were hurt because they love me. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, we don't want you to feel like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's so important that we do that. That just have those conversations with ourselves, and then have it with the person that you feel like you need to resolve that issue with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mozo, you said a minute ago that as your dad is getting older, he's starting to open up a little bit and say more things. What are some of the kind of things that he's told you that you have like, oh, I had no idea that you felt or you know, went through that or whatever?
I mean, I think it's just more I feel like growing up, like expectations, like Doug just said, right? Like the expectations, right? That you put someone on yourself, but you put it on them because you feel like your dad also has put them on you. So you feel like you have to live up to these expectations. And I feel like just hearing positive words from my dad, just saying something simply as saying like, you know, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
I see how you're raising your son and your daughter. I see how I love her. Even something like that, you know what I'm saying? Hearing it from your father
Yeah.
It's something that really it's something that touches my heart. Besides him saying he loves me, which is something that I didn't hear growing up as often, but just hearing positive things, not just hearing like when I did something wrong, oh, why are you doing this? Oh, why are you doing that? And that kind of stuff, like it's a beautiful thing to always keep that in mind when it comes to raising your children, right? Like, yeah, it's your job to raise them, but it's also your job to like give them some flowers, man. Like show them some love.
Yeah.
Like when they do something well, give them that clap. I play sports all my life, and I'm not gonna say I'm a big believer in everybody gets a trophy, but when it's your son, give him a trophy every day if he did what he was supposed to do. If he had a good day at school, you had a good day at school today. That's what's up. I love that. Keep doing your thing. Those little things keep them going and keep them positive. You know what I'm saying? Keep them positive and also just makes them want to just do better and be better people. And also one thing that my dad has done better also is that all my life, I don't know if this is my dad, but I know dads never say when they fail. Dads always, when they're telling a story, it's always about how they came, how they won, how they were able to persevere. It's never how they got there. It's never like what you did to get there, how many times you failed to get there. And that's where those expectations come as a son. For me, that's how they were, because I'm like, damn, my dad said he did this, this, and that, and he was able to overcome. Why am I struggling? How come I can't do it the first time? Why can't I do it? Why am I struggling, right? So what do I do as a father? I tell my son when I'm struggling with something, of course, age-appropriate conversation, right? That's something I don't want to think. I don't have to go to school and be stressed out. Oh my God, my dad is going through this. But just something as simple as just, like, yeah, I had a hard time with this. Today was a rough day at work, but guess what? Tomorrow I'm gonna get back at it. It's gonna be a better day tomorrow. Just to let them know that I am human. I am not Superman. You know what I'm saying? I am human. I make mistakes. I struggle, and that's part of life. But what's most important is to bounce back and being able to rebound and be able to come back the next day a better person and putting in your 100% effort. And that's what life has told me. And when you think about it, that's what my dad taught me. Because if it wasn't for my dad being this way, I would never learn this.
Yeah. Well, as and I may have said several times, more things are caught than they are taught. And and the reason I ask this question is because I'm just curious on why we wait so late. I say we as in men, why we wait so late to say the things we want to say to our kids. I recently just lost my dad about 5 months ago, and he was 83. And the last 3 years of his life, he lived in the house with us, and we enjoyed most minutes of it, but
many of the minutes.
There were many ups and downs, but it gave us a lot of opportunity to sit down, and he would just share his things, with the feelings that he had, the failures, the struggles that he had, and those kinds of things. And I learned more about my dad probably in those last 3 years of his life than I did the entire other 44 years that I've lived with him. Or how old am I now? I'm 50. Yeah. 47 years. So anyway, I'm just curious. I'm like, but my dad was fairly good. My parents were divorced at a fairly early age, about like 11. And he was fairly good at always being careful that he would give me kudos and tell me that he loved me and he was proud of me. But there were some things that he just finally waited until the last few years to say. And I'm like, Dad, I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know that you had gone through that kind of stuff. And I'm just curious. And I processed this over the past few months going, what is it that I'm waiting? Why do I have to wait to tell my son something? Why do we have to wait to tell our kids how we really feel, who we really are? Why do they need to wait and know? But I like what you were saying. All that to say, I like what you were saying about making sure our kids know that we're human. We're human. We go through struggles. We go through mistakes. We have failures. And we're not too big and we're not too superheroish to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And I think those are some of the best things your kids can hear you say.
Right. And sorry for your loss, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah. So anyway, be more open with our kids, I guess.
It's all good. I think you were talking about your dad. My dad was never a say I love you guy, and he's like just exactly what you're saying. He's older. He just turned 87, I think.
Wow.
But in the last few years, that's become a thing now. Like every phone call ends with "I love you," and it's like, wow. Something's changed. And it's, why do we wait so late? I don't think we're waiting. I think it takes that much time before the reality of how short this is and how
It takes so much time. Wait a minute. Wait, back up again. What is
it takes so much time in life. We have to experience loss so many times before we start to get how short life is. And we go, oh, wait, I can't pass up these moments anymore. I got to take advantage of every one of these moments.
Is that coupled with looking at, as we get older, like your dad's age and my dad's age, we're looking at our life going, it's going to end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got to say this.
See the odometer, the miles
right,
spinning out, the pages on the calendar.
This plane is going to land, baby.
Whatever analogy you want to use there. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think that's like a great point, man. Like
deer in the headlights.
I think it's like you start realizing that, man, life is so short, or man, who knows how long I'm gonna be here for? Let me say what I have to say. Yeah. But it's also the reason why also it takes so long is because we don't grow up thinking like we could express ourselves like that. That's why that's the reason why it takes so long. You know what I'm saying? Because you spend all your life thinking, I'm not gonna say how I feel.
Spend your whole life fronting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then not everybody has the luxury of, and I don't want to be a Donna Downer, but nobody has the luxury of living 87 years. There's some fathers that walk out the door with young children and never see them again, because of some tragic things. And I don't know. It's just some of those things you think about, and I'm like, I hoped I live a long time and then die in a plane crash. I don't want to. I want to go out with a bang. I want to die old doing something young. I want to die in a skydiving accident when I'm 87.
Okay.
Bungee jumping.
Yeah, bungee jumping. That's what I want. But I don't know. I just don't want that. I just don't want that hanging over my head. And I've tried to take some effort. And there are most of the times I take my son to school in the mornings, and there are times when we don't say two words to each other. And, on a 9-minute trip to school. And then there are times when it's, we just can't get enough. And I'm like, hey, maybe you shouldn't go to school today. Maybe we should just go to McDonald's and chit chat. And there are some times when he gets out of the car and I'm like, man, I wish I'd said that. I wish I'd said this. What if I said that? What if I said this? And anyway.
You know what it is, Mark, though? At least like that's crossing your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? At least you're thinking about that. Like, because there's times that I'm in the car with my son and I think to myself, why are we so quiet right now? Why are we not talking? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that crosses your mind when instead of it being just regular, like that's how it's supposed to be, so that right there is a sign that like what you're doing, and it's okay to sit in silence sometimes. Like it's okay to sit in silence, right? Like sometimes you have stuff going on in your head, he may have stuff going on in his head, and you guys just need that silence, right? But the fact that it's crossing your mind, I think it shows that you care, obviously, right?
Yeah. No, that's good. You're right.
Care.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, I've always thought it's like a really good sign in a relationship when you can share comfortable silence. Like you don't feel compelled to have to keep the pitter patter going, and somebody's always got to say something.
Yeah.
So it can be a nice thing too.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say that. But anyway,
I dig it. I like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, what else you are working now? I assume with all the stuff you've done and interest in youth stuff and being that kind of guidance thing. What sort of thing are you doing now, or what sort of things fill your time in that direction?
Well, really, what I've been working on. I'm working on the next season of my podcast, which is in the works. I finished the season 1, which, honestly, it was like therapeutic for me. I spoke about so many things that I didn't think I was capable of speaking of. And the fact that I was able to speak on them, and I got so much positive feedback from people, who just were not used to hearing it from someone like me. And I mean, someone like me is this, and this is what I mean by that is that, I think that when someone looks at me, right, I don't think they expect me to speak about certain things, right? And then whether it may be because of where I'm from, maybe what I look like, but I use that as an advantage. I use that to reel you in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Reel you in. That's what I do, right? You look at me, the image, but then you click on it and you don't expect to hear that. And you're like, wait, he's talking about that? Him?
I like
You know what I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah.
And that's really what I try to do to get people to listen to my stuff, you know, because I feel like I have to use it as an advantage because I'm a very personable person. And I know that I'm able to speak to different people and talk to different people and all this other, and people are willing to listen to me. But I want to talk about things that, like I said, that matter and things that, and don't get me wrong, I love to joke around. I love to play. Don't, you know what I'm saying? I have a joking side and all that. I do that. But I also want, like I said, I feel like I'm putting in the work to make a difference and make a change. And that's the one thing that I'm working. That's my number one thing that I'm working on. My second thing that I'm working on is I'm working on my Instagram TV series, which is called Watch 'em Off Wednesdays. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to build a community. And I feel like the best way to build community is by having people that, you know, whether you're a content creator, you have a podcast, or you have a YouTube show, whatever it may be, you're an artist or anything like that, I want to have you on. And I want to have you on so I can ask you certain questions, you know, and not gonna be some deep questions, but maybe questions where people may see a different side of you, right? And may get to know you in a different way. Because a lot of times we as podcasters or YouTubers or content creators, people only see that one side of us, right?
Right.
And that's why sometimes I try to be a little more playful on Instagram or do things maybe with, you know, interview somebody who may be a little bit outside the box. People can see that I'm not just this one person that just wants to have this serious conversation all the time and talk about serious things and all this other stuff, you know. But that's also part of what I want to do.
You're working the medium.
Right, you know, and you have to be able to do that if you really want to do the work.
Absolutely,
you have to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I always admit that to people. I say, listen, if I really just sit there and just preach and don't do anything else and don't, you know what I'm saying, no one's gonna want to click on anything. No one's gonna want to, you know, you have to use things to your advantage and use your skills that you have to your advantage. And I feel like that's what I've been doing. And honestly, it's been a success so far, you know, and I'm proud of myself for that. And I'm happy I can say that. I'm very proud of myself of the growth that I've done as a person, as a human. You know, I've come a long way because I'm still toxic because we're all toxic. You know, we all at some point or another do toxic things or may say something toxic. But you know what it is you catch yourself sometimes when you're about to do something toxic or after you do it. That's what matters, because we're all human and we're gonna make mistakes, you know. But I think that, man, my growth, that if you spoke to Mozo a year ago from now, it's a big difference, man. My mindset is a different place. I'm a different person, you know what I mean? And it's not so much I'm a different person, but just I've evolved to who I really am.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that I spent my whole life wearing this mask or wearing this, you know, this cover up of who I really wasn't, because I felt like that's what I had to do to fit in. That's what I had to do to be down. That's what I had to do to, you know, and that's just what I thought it was. But and I could admit that, you know what I mean? and I'm not proud of it, but that's what it was. And now what it is now is the real me. And the real me is somebody who I'm so happy with. It's somebody that I know I have bad days, but like I said, I know bad days will come, but when you know they're coming, you're better prepared for them. And when you're able to bounce back from them, that's what matters the most.
So it's I'm sorry, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just gonna say I'm listening to you always come back to this positive perspective.
Yeah.
You always, everything always comes back positive. Where does that come from? How do you energize that daily?
The positive comes back from the fact that I'm alive, man. That's where the positive comes back. I'm so happy to be alive, Doug and Mark. Yeah, and I'm telling you why, because there's people that unfortunately that I grew up with I'm 34 years old, that at 34 years old, they're not here right now. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact that we wear this mask and this cover up, we feel like we have to act a certain way and be a certain way and do this and do that, you know, and you just end up hurting yourself and then hurting those around you that you supposedly love and care about, you know. So I'm appreciative every single morning when I wake up. I'm appreciative to have this life that I have, you know what I mean? And that I'm able to then have my life and then give the love that I have to myself and to those that are around me and to anybody else that I come in contact with, you know. And that's another thing that I've done from 1 year to now, is that if I feel, for example, you guys invited me on here and I appreciate that, but I'll be perfectly honest with y'all. If I would have seen your YouTube video, you know, your YouTube show and all that stuff, and I would have felt like it's something that I would not been, like something that would have messed up my energy, then I would have just said no. You know what I'm saying? I would have been like,
Yeah.
no, thank you. I wouldn't even have followed you guys. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And I feel like even that plays a huge part into what you're doing, because when you start following things that are not something that resonates with you or doesn't,
Sure.
it starts clouding your mind.
Yep.
Without even realizing, it starts clouding your mind. Then you start feeding into it, and I'm not feeding into anything like that. And that's why I remain
Yeah.
positive, even through rough and tough times.
That's
Man,
great.
I want to go back to the whole change thing. And you were talking about how just you weren't the same guy a year ago. Man, that is, to me, that is the pinnacle of being a man and stepping up on who it is when you can do self-initiated change for good. When you can say, you can take a look at yourself, inspect yourself, take an inventory and go, I have got to change this. And a lot of people have those desires. We have those things that we look at ourselves and we go, man, I wish I could change that. And then we can't change it, or we don't, but we can, but we don't. And you're just a perfect example of someone who's taken that self-initiative and going, all right, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to be like Michael and start with a man in the mirror. And I'm going to make that change. You're welcome. and I'm going to be a different person. And that is so, man, that is so good. That's something that I have kind of focused on in the past couple of years too, is just, I'm going to be a different person in the next few years. I'm going to completely change, completely evolve. And to do that, you got to do new things, right? You got to do Watch Your Mouth Wednesday on Instagram TV. You got to do a podcast. You got to start creating content. You got to step out and do those things. And what does that mean? That means we're going to fail at something, but it's okay. And I'm with Doug, man. Your positive attitude, your positive vibe you're putting off is just like, oh man, I want to hang around this guy. I want to hang around Mozo a lot more, man. He's probably good for me.
So you still doing the Watch Your Mouth podcast, the one where you talk? I've listened to several of those. Is that still an ongoing thing you're doing?
Yeah.
In
That's what I'm
addition to
working
the
on.
IGTV, doing both of
Yeah.
those. Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on season 2 of that. I'm just creating the content for it, recording, because like I said, besides that, my kids, I don't have a studio. My studio is my kid's bedroom because it has the best soundproof. I lock myself in there, crossing my fingers that the dog doesn't bark, and I record away. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
and I'm not big on like I edit here and there, but I really like to be just raw with what I say.
Yeah.
And that's what I am. That's how I am with everything. Like even for now, I didn't ask you guys like what we were going to talk about. I didn't ask for any questions. I asked for anything else because I wanted to be natural. I wanted to be raw, and I wanted to be real, because that's, for me, that's as real as it could be. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
That's pretty much season 2 of my podcast is coming, and the Instagram TV show. I have I'm booked like the next, I don't even know. it's booked.
Yeah,
so you said it's on
watched a
Wednesday, so
couple
that's
of those,
tomorrow,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
I need to. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
send a follow here.
I have tomorrow. Yeah, it's every Wednesday. Except for one Wednesday in July, because I'm gonna be away. But every single Wednesday, I've been doing it since, I think it's been since February or January. I don't remember when the first day was, but
Nice.
That's what I've been doing.
The Gentlementor.